Every squad in Valorant has one player who leads the team, who takes responsibility for tactics and decisions, who has to keep an eye on the bigger picture and not just on himself. In-game leaders are the backbone of all pro teams and sometimes their biggest stars. And even in your solo queue ranked matches, you are glad to hear someone taking over in terms of shot calling. If you want to become that player yourself, learn here and now about the basics of IGLing in Valorant. Strategy is the action plan that takes you where you want to go, while tactics are the individual steps and actions that will get you there. When it comes to shot calling in Valorant, everyone talks about strats. I will cover strats in another video as well, but often IGLing is more about minor decisions. I feel like in a casual ranked mode, tactics are often completely overlooked. People might think of tactics as backseating others, which is bad, but in my opinion, that is not the case. A round is won not because you choose to go A or B. All the tiny details in between create advantages and disadvantages for your team, and it is the IGL's job to optimize them. Defaults are standardized setups that make you start any round without risks, no matter what the opponent is going to do. Therefore, it is a strategical approach how to play a default setup. But the idea of defaults is of tactical nature. No matter if defense or attack, defaults are usually designed to maintain map control. Each path to your side of the battlefield is guarded, which creates a feeling of safety. Per definition, defaults, when they are played the right way, are not particularly weak against any sort of aggression. Instead, they provide useful information to plan your next steps on your enemy's moves. That said, it is certainly incorrect to begin each and every round by playing default. You need to switch your game plan here and there to remain unpredictable. Usually, a Valorant map consists of 3 main paths from the attackers to the defenders spawn. One leads straight to A, one to B, and one is right in the middle. Regardless of you being attacker or defender, you need to cover them all to make your default work. Having 5 players instead of 3 provides the possibility to decide which path you want to create pressure on and which one you'd like to just hold defensively. Each round starts with fights for the spaces between the spawn barriers, as they are up to grabs in the beginning. And whoever controls more space needs to fear less. For instance, if you have control over Ascent's A main, Garage and mid, the defending opponents must fear attacks on all 3 fronts at any given time, which makes it impossible to create favorable fights anywhere without gambling. You see how important it is to create space early on? A good default lets you take control over at least one of the main paths without completely losing control over the others. This goal is achievable by letting your pack, consisting of 3 to 4 players, attack one path while the other 2 being held defensively. There are not many things in Valorant that are more frustrating than trying to secretly creep into a surprising spot, having the feeling of good timing, being close to that unexpected entry frag, and suddenly one teammate next to you steps loudly, uses his utility or finds any other creative way to give away your sneaky position. Maybe the opposite is known to you as well. You and 3 teammates attack one side by brute force, and when each of you have fallen, you cannot deny the feeling it would have needed only one more gun to make it work, but your last mate haven't got the rush call and tries to be sneaky behind you. Good team play demands being on the same page in terms of pace. This is why every good IGL should always be clear about it when he calls for an attack on an area. You can differentiate between 3 kinds of pace. Rushing means using every piece of helpful utility as soon and as quickly as possible and attacking that space no matter what, always being ready to fight. Control means using your utility in a slower manner, clearing every possible angle one by one, being ready to refrag your teammates. Contact means making absolutely no sound. Another important part of these 3 paces is to keep track of possible switches. When the first frag is made, a contact go can become a rush in an instant. Imagine the following situation. You, as the IGL, call a contact play towards the A side with 5 people. You sneak all the way up to the entrance without being noticed and then get smoked off on perfect timing. Everyone knows that continue contacting would be bad, but nobody knows exactly what to do now because you haven't called that before. One might think he needs to spend utility now to force an entry to A and flashes through the smoke. Another one might worry about your lost map control and runs back towards the attacker spawn. A third one might be triggered by the smoke to rush straight through it, while your 4th mate believes in your original plan and wants to wait until the smoke is gone. To maintain control of the situation, you need to always be one step ahead. And you must call that next step as well before the situation occurs. At the start of the round, give your team a protocol. When this happens, do that. Of course, it is impossible to cover every imaginable circumstance, but especially in cases where the whole team has to be on the same page, this becomes very important. Contact A S5. When we get smoked off, prepare and execute with util on my go. For this type of calling, the IGL needs to keep an eye on the enemy's agents and their utility. What could they possibly do that counters your plan? Prepare your protocols for the defensive side too. In a default setup, for example, it should always be clear which side to fight for and which one to give up and play retake in case of a rush. The importance of a strong default setup should be clear by now, but we also agreed that you shouldn't play default 24/7. Mix it up, especially under certain circumstances that offer smaller chances to win rounds in a conventional way. In eco rounds, call plays where you only attack the areas of the map that provide ult orbs and give them to players who either are close to their ultimate ability or whose ultimates are very strong. When you are down in numbers, call for saves where the remaining players of your team try to survive till the end and carry their weapons to the next round. When you have lots of money in the bank while the opponents are almost broke, let them win the round and go for exit frags instead. All those little ideas can lead to a more successful next round. As an IGL, you try to get information about the opposing team to use them to your advantage. Gathering and using information successfully requires teammates in various positions. Besides the pack of 3 to 4 players that we've already talked about, there is often that one guy on the other side of the map that plays all by himself, but not only for himself. On attack, that guy is called lurker, on defense, anchor or flanker. He needs to stay alive as long as possible to maintain map control. His main purpose is to listen to rotations and to find those perfect timings that allow sneaky missions behind enemy lines. Rely on your lurkers or flankers info and adjust your plans according to his calls. Round by round, you will get to know more and more about the way your enemies play the game. Some teams like to rush a lot, so your team must play deeper and use utility to gain enough time to rotate. Some teams have strong defaults which they try to abuse in every round, so it's up to you to find that one perfect counterplay. Some teams tend to go for post-plant scenarios since they have lots of mollies in their lineup, so you better stop them from planting or enable your flankers to get them from behind. Use the knowledge you gathered in the post rounds for those to come. That means reading your opponents. When the enemy always know what you are going to do, you get the feeling of helplessness. Give them a taste of this medicine. Though each match in Valorant is different, there are for sure certain situations that occur again and again. How valuable it would be to have fitting calls prepared as an IGL to manage all those messes perfectly. Maybe the upcoming ideas help you feel more comfortable every now and then. Think about the first 4 ideas as calls for the whole team. Every one of your squad is affected by them, because in these situations it takes everyone to do the right thing. Imagine you try to push the A side with 4 players, while one is on the lurk and keeps some map control for your team. Your pack fights a bit until your push gets slowed by utility. No one knows what you are going to do next. While your Jet asks for more flashes and wants to break through at all costs, your Sova shifts back to rotate to B. It is quiet for a few seconds until your Brimstone decides to take the free orb in A main, revealing to the enemies that you're still present there. There is no good way to go anymore. Either you rotate now, but if you go slow, your opponents will be faster, and if you go fast, your opponents will hear your rotation. Or you attack A again, but your opponents are aware of that possibility and well prepared. One call would have prevented this miserable situation. It was needed 20 seconds ago though. Freeze and cut noise would have made your team to be on the same page. Stay in A main and make no sound at all. No steps, no fights, no orbs, no util. A general rule in a tactical shooter is the following. When you are down in numbers, take risks. When you have the player's advantage, play defensive. This makes the call reset very important. Especially after an early fight that you have won, many players tend to go all in. They feel like victory is close, they tasted blood and want to finish the job now. But this is wrong, because losing one unnecessary duel means giving away the early advantage. Instead, you need to fall back to safety, group up with your team and make new plans to stay ahead. Winning rounds in Valorant depends heavily on having good timing. To reach the full potential of your team's composition, make sure that your utility usage and your movement are well synchronized. In order to achieve that, perhaps you should stop telling your teammates to go A or to push on my mark, but instead give them timestamps on when exactly to be in position and do what they have to do. Your go time should be defined by the round timer. go at 120 would be a better call than go on my signal, because this way your teammates know how much time they got left to do whatever they want. For example, take that ult orb before getting into position. When defending bomb sites, no matter if as a defender or as an attacker versus retaking opponents, it is crucial to know when to hold off the enemies at all costs, and when to evacuate the site before casualties get out of hand. You as the IGL are responsible for letting everyone know exactly when to fight and when to flee. And additionally, you have to do that early enough by any means. Otherwise, half of your comrades will stick to their gunpowder and fight till death, while the others cheering for them from the sideline being unable to help. Call fight if you want them to stand their ground. Call retake or post plant if they'd better evacuate as quickly as possible. The next 4 calls are specifically made to be used by or for only one player on your team. Not only the IGL can use them, but he usually has the best overview of the situation. Call sound to let one specific player in a decisive spot listen for footsteps of rotating enemies. Sometimes it gets loud in your Discord or TeamSpeak call during a round because everyone has to contribute something. This is usually a good sign and is not to be criticized, unless there is one specific player in a heavily sound-dependent situation. When sound gets called, everyone should hush immediately to let that one player play on the sound he gets to hear. When the round became chaotic because your plans were foiled and people were fighting and utility was flying left and right, stay calm when the smoke clears and ask for info. You need to gather every piece of knowledge to decide which move will lead you to victory now. The team members that were fighting have to contribute their knowledge about the last remaining enemies. Use that break of gunfire to get an overview of the situation. We agreed on the need of good timing when the whole team is involved when we talked about calling out timestamps for pushes. The same applies to double peaks. There is no need for timestamps though, but what you should do is count down from 3. It is much easier to hit the perfect double peak when both players know exactly when the other one is committing to the fight. You can also count down on your flashes when you play an initiator like KO or Breach. Countdowns should be used by one of the involved players, not necessarily by the IGL. Last but not least, call util to get a list of remaining utilities from your teammates. This might be of use in mid-round situations after some early fighting, when a push or a retake is about to happen and you need to know which info abilities, flashes or stuns are still available. Alternatively, you can press the Alt key to see your teammates' utilities in the HUD, but often that's way more complicated and you have to use your whole focus on that. On top of that, your comrades will know which util is strong for your next move and will prioritize that over other things. For instance, your Sova would tell you about his drone or his Wrecking Dart, while his shock darts would only be of use in case of a post plant. IGLing in Valorant is certainly not easy. It comes with no surprise that IGLs are said to have lower combat scores and less kills than their mates. Being an IGL means sacrificing something, but for some of you it might pay off when one day you become the person that takes responsibility in his or her own hands and leads the team to victory.